So I'm going to catch you up on the latest of these pieces. I've already given them away. They just haven't come and picked them up yet. And there's some other things to tell you about that story too. My last time I went to church, some of the testimonies I heard people say up there that coincide with things we talk about right here on this channel, like truth drops in movies. He didn't call them truth drops. He just called it truth in movies. And he was referencing things that he heard in, I think it was Rocky. Anyway, I feel like you can only see half my face because the lighting. Maybe we go this way. That's a little better. What I just realized, I've been the author of my own authority since 6 or 7 years old, and I use that inner knowing of right and wrong since 6 or 7 years old when they tried to put me on Ritalin. And I had to say, not no, but hell no, to my mom, the teachers, and the doctors, all of these authority figures who all conspired. The teachers, with all the authority of the doctors behind them, told my mom, yeah, he'll be much easier to raise and control. What ended up happening is I said not no, but hell no to all of them. My mom came up with an ulterior by when she told my grandpa, he's saying no, and I don't know what the hell to do. My grandpa came up with an alternative. He said, give him this vinegar and honey. It'll take the piss and vinegar out of him. My mom said, okay, that way she could still be the authority and not just let me do whatever the hell I want and make my own decisions. Okay, if you're not going to take these pills, then you got to drink the shit water every day. Okay? Okay, I'll drink the shit water. Promise? Otherwise you got to take the pills. I'll drink the shit water. And so for a month or two, I had to drink a cup of vinegar and water with some honey in it so it didn't taste as bad. Because according to my grandpa, that'll take the piss and vinegar out of him. That's an old saying for the energy, what you see coming out of me right now. And I'll bet you he's glad they put me on that, because right now everyone needs a little piss and vinegar that they tried to take out of me with some of that soul-sucking medication that would have slowed me down and made me easier to control. That is the same option, the same opportunity to demonstrate your own level of mastery that everyone else out there right now is going through. They want to give you something to slow you down and make you easier to control. You must be the author of your own authority and have that inner knowing of right and wrong, good and bad, and rely upon it. And so I have been essentially being prepared for this my whole life. That was at 6 or 7 years old. Maybe 8 at the most. By the time I was 9, I think I had my 9th birthday in California. That's while we were still here in Utah. My mother was a drunk, and I knew I couldn't rely on her and her ability to comprehend right and wrong. She was already having her soul sucked by the alcohol she was all fucked up on. Yet she's sitting here trying to convince me, no, the teachers say it'll make you better. Not no, but fuck no. To my mom, to the teachers, and to the doctors. And in order that she can, well, what am I going to do, Dad? He's fucking deciding for himself what he's going to do. He's saying hell no to me and the teachers and the principals and the doctors and anyone else that wants to put him on these pills. Well, when you'd already sacrificed your kid on the altar of national security with this new and different experimental microchip in the air, what's these pills going to do? I mean, seriously. At the time, Ritalin was new and different, and no one even knew what the fuck it did. But they told my mom, yeah, it'll make him easier to control. He'll get better grades, he'll be better in school, he'll be less of a problem child. In other words, it'll slow him down and make him easier to control. Which is why my grandpa said, here, this'll take the piss and vinegar out of him, which is your goal. Giving him this vinegar water will actually take the piss and vinegar out of him. And it was some sort of mental, okay. It was a punishment alternative so that she still was the authority. All right, well, if you're not going to listen to me and do this, then you got to do that. And I said, okay, you promise? Yep. And for, I don't know, a couple months, I was made to drink shit water every day because I refused to take those pills. My mom didn't refuse to take those pills. She likes to tell the story. Oh yeah, they tried to put Jeff on Ritalin and I told him hell no. The fuck out of here. I told you, mother, along with them, along with the doctors and the teachers and my own mother who were all conspiring against me, and I knew the difference between right and wrong, and I was the author of my own authority at 7 years old, and I followed that inner knowing of right and wrong. Everyone else is being faced with the same predicament and circumstance and decision that they have to make right now. Rely on that inner knowing of right and wrong. Don't let everyone around you who's telling you, oh no, the authorities all say this and that and the other, and they all agree. You know right and wrong. You must be the author of your own authority. Just like me at 6 years old, 7 years old, maybe 8 at the oldest. And you must decide for yourself what's right and wrong and stand your ground. Even if the greatest and only authorities in your whole life are all conspiring to tell you this is what you need to do. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. From in here, and you don't need to justify it or be able to rationalize it or write it out on paper or convince or persuade anybody else. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. And you know that whatever this shit is they're trying to push on you, it's bad. That's all I needed to know at 7 years old, 8 years old. I couldn't articulate my words in such a way to convince or persuade my mother or these doctors or the teachers of why I know that's bad. I knew what I knew, and I stood in my knowing. And it was only because I stood my ground they come up with this alternative. So because I was suddenly at 7 years old the author of my own authority, and I was going to tell them what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, and I was going to decide for myself what I'm going to take and what I'm not. What the hell got into him? Exactly what you were trying to take out of me. The light of Christ. No, we just want to take the piss and vinegar out of you, slow you down, make you a little easier to control. Exactly. And as a parent, that sounded like a good thing. Yeah, he'll be a little bit more slow and docile and sheepish and easier to control. He'll do what I tell him instead of deciding for himself what he'll do and what he won't do. That sounds like a good... Here, I think you should take these pills. The teachers and the doctors, they all say they know good, and they've convinced me that it's a good thing. And she likes to tell the story as if she told them no, which is a total fucking lie. How she lies to herself and convinces herself to believe that shit, I don't know. The only reason I ended up drinking vinegar and water for a month or two thereafter is because I said no. If she was the one who told the doctors no, there would have been no such vinegar and water drinking for the month or two thereafter. She would have just simply told the doctors no, and she wouldn't have decided, well, we'll do an alternative, doc. We'll do an alternative, teacher. Instead we'll put him on this vinegar water. How's that, teacher? How's that, doctor? No. She told me that because I was the one that said no. So now that's where everybody else is at this moment. Same place I was at 7 years old. They got to be the authors of their own authority. They got to use their inner knowing of what's right and what's wrong. And even if you can't prove it or convince or persuade or articulate and put into words, well, how do you know the vaccine's not good for you? Well, how do you know all these authority figures who tell you in unison that it would be good for you are wrong? You don't have to convince or persuade or listen to any of them. You know what's right and what's wrong, and that whatever that shit is bad, and that's all you need to know. You don't need to explain it or put it into any further words any more than I did at 7 years old, when I became the author of my own authority and followed my inner knowing. And I knew that I wasn't going to take that shit. We got a lot of anti-vaxxers, the never-sleevers, Monograph calls them. So that's where everyone's at right now. And that's why I'm extremely well positioned to be able to go through this. I, in fact, thrive in these conditions. With the heat and the pressure that they're putting on us, I thrive. In this storm that we're in, I'm learning to dance in the rain while everyone else is trying to get through the storm. This heat and this pressure is a distillation process of the culture. Just like a metallurgist, or not a metallurgist, a blacksmith takes the sword and puts it in the fire, puts it over here and hammers it a few times, puts it back in the fire, brings it over here and hammers it a few times, and each time he does, little sparks fly off. Those are the impurities. And in the end, you end up with tempered steel that has a tensile strength that is much stronger than the original iron you started with. Through the heat and the pressure that's being applied to us right now, the impurities are flying off right and left. People that don't follow that inner knowing and instead use some other form of logic and reason and rationale to justify their decision making, those are the impurities that are flying off right and left. You stick to your inner knowing and it will strengthen the fiber of your being, the fiber of your character, just like the tensile strength of that steel that's now tempered steel. You will come out the other side a more pure, hardened version of yourself. And our culture will come out the other side with all these people in it now that are actually cultivated. Through the cultivating process, the distillation process, which also happens through a process of heat and pressure, the impurities are removed. And you end up with better whiskey as you remove the impurities, whether it's water or any of the other impurities. Through the distillation process, that's what we're going through. A cultural distillation. This petri dish that we're in, this culture of society that we are in, is being distilled and separated into different cultures within different petri dishes. And you need to be ready to join the petri dish of the culture of those who are like yourself. And literally, physically separate yourself from the others. Cell mitosis is another way to think of it. And right now, we still have a little bit of crossover, but it's not much. And the cells are about to divide. And that is what it means, I believe, in the Bible when it says, "Come out of her, lest you partake in her plagues, O Babylon." Because the people in the cities are not going to fare well. You need to be ready and willing and able to physically separate yourself. Right now, we are mentally and emotionally, psychologically and spiritually separating the wheat from the chaff. You need to be prepared to physically separate yourself for a short time while the fire is applied. Because those who will not mentally and emotionally cultivate themselves and become like these people over here need to be separated from them and wiped out. They had a chance. They don't have to be physically removed from the face of the earth. They can change. They can choose. They do it to themselves. So back to these pieces of plasma-fired wood. My last update on that was like last Sunday, when I told you I went down and got the church roster with all everyone's phone number and home address in order to get Bob Bailey's phone number and home address. I went over to his house on Wednesday. Show up at his front door. He's kind of surprised to see me, or at least he pretended to be. And I was like, hey, Bob, I think I might have mentioned something about his lunchbox, too. I think I got your old lunchbox from the DI. I'll never forget your name again, because the last time I seen him, I was having trouble remembering his name. I was like, that won't happen anymore. I think I got your old lunchbox, and it kind of singed its way into my mind. And I told him I got these pieces of, because he'd come over and told me, those look like they're going to be beautiful when they get done. And he looked over at this one, right there in the window, as he said, that looks like it's going to be beautiful, referring to the one that I was making over here at the door when he came to the door. While we were standing out front, he said, it looks like it's going to be beautiful when it gets done. And he looked over at the window, at this one in the window, for a pretty long gaze. Remember that, because later on it comes into I thought I heard his heart singing, how much is that loggie in the window? The answer is free to a good home. I'm adopting it out. To sell your dog just feels gross. Why would you take money for a pet that you love? And this is my pet project that I have passion for. And so it's free to a good home. To someone who's going to care for it, that thinks it's beautiful like I do, that cares for it the way I do, that appreciates it the way I do. So the last I told you is that I went and got that church roster, not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before. On Wednesday of that week, I went over to Bob's house and let him know, I want to donate, and I kind of specified this piece over here that's got the bugs, the self-portrait of the termites, which indicate a level of self-awareness and consciousness or sentience that we don't normally associate with bugs. We think they don't have self-awareness to the point where they can draw a self-portrait. And so I tell him, yeah, I got these pieces of wood like you saw me making over there, and I want to donate them to the church. Especially this one. I think it would be best going down to the entomology department at BYU. They would appreciate it in ways that other people wouldn't. And I think the same holds true for all of these pieces. I want them to be in the hands of someone who appreciates them in ways that my family, if they fall into their hands, won't. Now, I don't remember exactly how much of this I told Bob at the time. I'll just slow myself down. I think I told him I want to trade these pieces. Not trade. I want to give them, donate them to the church in order that they don't end up being bought or sold at a yard sale. Because that's what would happen. Bless her heart, that's what my mom said the other day. I'll bet you could put them out on the front yard on a blanket and someone would probably offer you something for them. That's like saying, your daughter, if you put her out there on the corner and dress her in the right clothes, I'll bet you someone would offer you something for her. What, those Babylonian magic squares that are going to be worth nothing real soon? All wealth is knowledge and all economic growth is learning. And what I'm going to do with these pieces is deposit them somewhere where they will stimulate the economic growth cycle of a new learning process when the time comes. In order to make that happen for posterity into the future, I am going to deposit them into the institution of the LDS Church, which will be around after me and Bob and my family are all gone. But I don't think I told him all that. I just said I want to donate these to the church. And at some point, he said, so, because I started referring to the one with the bug, right? The bug carvings. And I even showed him a picture. And so he said, so you want to donate one of those to the church, huh? I said, no, all of them. Oh, okay. Well, that'd be like a donation in kind, he says. Yeah, that'd be more like a donation in kind. I don't know what that means. It sounds like a technical term that may relate to tax write-offs or something. But what he followed up with is an indicator that he understands the value of these and sees it the way I do. Because he said people don't do that much anymore. A donation in kind. They used to, like back in the pioneer days, people used to do that more often, but not so much anymore. Like they used to donate cars and boats and trucks and, like for instance, I bought a horse from the church, a young colt, that someone had made a donation in kind to the church. And I bought it I said, you have to break it? Oh yeah, I had to break it. You know how you have to break a colt? You have to break their spirit, which is what they wanted to do to me with the Ritalin. See how that shit ties back in? Kind of neat. And so we just keep talking like that. And about the carving, I showed him a picture of the bug carving. At some point he said, yeah, that looks kind of like one of those, like those stone carvings where they, carve it into stone. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It's a wood carving and it looks like a wood carving. But for him to say that is almost like I submitted my application like Homer Simpson when he joined the Stonecutters. That's what he was alluding to, for those that don't get it. I was like, oh yeah, they did a better job at it than me. I couldn't even, carve that out that precise. It's like, they're so precise, I think I can even tell what kind of termite it is. It's a conehead termite. Because I looked up online, and that's exactly what they look like. He's like, yeah, okay. So when I told him I want to donate all of them, he's like, oh, well, that'd be a donation in kind. Here, let me get you the bishop's phone number and email. That was Wednesday of last week. By Saturday night at about 8:30 p.m., I had taken a few pictures and formulated an email. It was voice to text, so I didn't actually talk. To the bishop. I wish I would have pulled that up on my phone so I could read it for you, but basically I said to him all the things that I just said about depositing this. That some people say, it has been said that all wealth is knowledge and all economic growth is learning, and I would like to deposit these in a place where they can be utilized and the value of them can actually be extracted at a time in the context of historical artifacts and outside of the scope of current events. And that these may, I mentioned in the thing that I sent to the bishop on a Saturday night about 8 o'clock. About the one with the bugs, how it would be most appropriate to go down to the BYU entomology department. And that some of the others might appropriately be displayed in a science museum or history museum or even an art museum, but probably in the basement for private presentation only until this is out of the scope of current events and in the context of historical artifacts. That's when the value, the knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that is contained within these can be fully extracted and appreciated. And if I remember anything else that I said in the email, I'll mention it. So I send him this email. Bishop Packard is his name. Mark Packard. Send him an email Saturday night at about 8 p.m. Go to church the next morning at about 9 a.m. And as I sit down, the guy next to me slides over, introduces himself. I forget what he said his first name was, but his last name is Schultz. Brother Schultz. He might not even have said his first name. He might have just said Brother Schultz, but I'm pretty sure he said his first name. And he said, yeah, I've seen that up in your window there, those pieces of wood you're working on. That one in the window looks pretty sharp. I said, oh yeah, thanks. In fact, I'm happen to be here just so I can get with Bishop Packard regarding an email that I sent him last night because I want to donate those to the church. Oh, really? Huh? Oh, cool. And then he proceeds to tell me that he used to be the bishop before Bishop Packard. I said, oh, cool. Thanks for introducing yourself. That was probably who was the bishop at the time when my mom said she went and talked to the bishop and he said, oh, I watched some of his YouTube videos. Later on, like I can't believe a word my mom says, but I can detect a liar pretty well. And later on, I asked her, you were just saying that so I didn't go make a fool of myself at the time, right? And say some things that might, regret or whatever. Oh, no, he really said he watched your videos. I said, now which bishop was that? She couldn't remember his name. But I'm pretty sure that was the one. I don't know how often they switch bishops, but that was only like a year or so ago. And he happened to be sitting right next to me, and he happened to bring up the wood that morning when I'm waiting for the end of the services so I can go tell Bishop Packard, I sent you an email, I'd like to make this donation. By the end of the services, a couple other people were going up and visiting with him, so I waited until he was free. And then he approached me, and we talked for a minute. He's like, oh, yeah, I got your email last night. Something. I said, oh, cool. He's kind of said, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to send those pictures around and talk to some people. I told him I can bring them wherever you want in the little red truck I got. And at some point, I said, yeah, I thought I heard it coming from Brother Bailey's heart. How much is that loggy in the window? So I thought, free to a good home. And it was like, nyuk, okay. And we moved on. And I said, okay, give me a call. We'll see you later. Thanks. And that was that. That was last Sunday. Wednesday of this week, I hadn't heard back from him. So I sent Bishop Packard another email with a few more photos, along with another idea that if he knows anyone who paints, who's good with a paintbrush, I have these pieces that I would like to use as a canvas because they're very thin pieces. I'm going to keep covering the lens. Anyway, I'll show you these a little later. This one's basically like a rainbow-shaped piece, an arch. This one is an arch, and it does like a 180 twist. You see down here, it's flat. And then it comes over. Ooh, I don't want to tip it over. Anyway, then it comes over and it does a twist. Here, from this way over to this way. So it doesn't just go straight over, it goes over and does a bit of a corkscrew as it goes over. There's a couple other pieces. This one, these, what is it? This one. You can see how it's really thin and would work. It's nice and lightweight. I have another one in the other room. Anyway, I just sent him a picture of those and said, hey, you know anyone who's good with a paintbrush? That might... And I sent him an image of my icon that is on my YouTube page of the tree. Oops. The tree with the lightning going down into it and then coming out. It's got little lightning forks all throughout the ground. And it appears to be coming down in from the top and then going down into the ground. The icon on my YouTube page, I took a picture of that. Sent him another email on Wednesday, said, hey, you know any artists who are good with a paintbrush who might consider painting on these pieces of wooden canvas that are ready to be painted, that I was hoping someone would paint on before I lacquer them. And I sent one image for a suggestion, but whatever the artist presents and produces would enhance the final product, and I'd greatly appreciate it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that image. But that would be a cool image to get painted on those, right? And kind of breaks a little more of the ice. Oh yeah, and I said that I put some new coats on some of the older pieces to make that charcoal sparkle for a good impression on their new caretakers. Good first impression. And I did. I polished some of them up. You can polish the lacquer. And I've added quite a few new coats where I didn't add enough lacquer to the charcoal areas on some of the earlier ones because my technique has developed. I've gotten better at what I do over the last couple of years. And some of the earliest pieces didn't really have enough. This is a good example right here. In the charcoal area, I didn't add enough lacquer in the charcoal area, but once you add enough lacquer, it really starts to sparkle. Man, this is hard. This is like really messing with my brain. Here, there we go. This is pretty shiny over here. This is not so shiny over here. But this can get just as shiny as this if you add a little bit more lacquer, a few more coats. And so my earlier pieces, they've gotten overspray on them. Especially in those charcoal areas. You want to do those last because the overspray that lands on the wood, you can polish that off with a rag. The overspray that lands on the charcoal area, you can't really polish it as good with a rag. So you want it final coat to go on that charcoal area so you don't get overspray. And I know this piece right here in the window has got kind of a reputation because Bishop Schultz, Bishop Packard, and Brother Bailey, Bob Bailey, all commented on it and have apparently seen it. So I wanted it to be able to live up to its reputation. And so I sent him another email Wednesday. Asked him if he may know anyone who's willing to paint on those pieces. Gave him a suggestion of what they might paint. The tree with the lightning bolt. Hint, hint. Which breaks the ice and opens the conversation for further advancement of the conversation about these pieces, because until then, it's still kind of a touchy subject. So we leave it with things like how much is that loggy in the window and make that charcoal sparkle. But eventually we can talk about, that's the other thing I said in the email to him, is that right now the knowledge of what these are and that they contain, the wealth of knowledge they contain, is still mostly in areas of theoretical and experimental rather than applied sciences. And so, in due time, these will be a wealth of knowledge that can fully be extracted in the context of historical artifacts and outside the scope of current events. Because currently, the understanding of how this works is more like in the area of theoretical science and experimental science rather than applied sciences. Because I'm kind of ahead of the curve, so far ahead of the curve that are these worthless or priceless? Which is it? Some people see them as worthless. It's just burnt wood. And that's what I told him in the email too. If you will take these, I would like to give them to you because it's kind of like a white elephant gift. Why would I want your burnt pieces of wood? Those just take up space. Who the hell wants burnt wood? Because the general public. Oh, and I sent him pictures of the fake ones you can buy on Amazon and said the general market's concept of the value in these should be catching up rather quickly because these are apparently for sale on Amazon and they are artificial versions attempting to produce what I've produced with these the real deal. Forget how I worded it, but I worded it well. And so we're coming up on the 33-minute mark, 33 minutes, 33 seconds, Illuminati confirmed. My phone always stops right then, or around then. So I just wanted to keep you guys in the spirit of keeping you up to date with what's happening. I kind of teach as I learn and share my experiences as I have them throughout the last couple of years. I'm going to talk more. I'm going to just let this keep going. Because the things that I heard while I was at the church services the other day talked about truth in movies, which is what I call muse messages, which is what Vanessa VA calls retrocausal language and Matt from Quantum of Conscience calls truth drops in movies. That's what they were talking about. And it was a police officer who talks about how when he was young, he leaned on his mom's testimony before he had one of his own. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people relying and leaning upon my testimony who don't have one of their own that's anything like as authentic and powerful as mine. Even people right down there at that church, because apparently I've probably got a little fan club locally, but they don't talk about it much because it would influence the product or the presentation that I make here. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people down there that would much rather be in the trenches right next to me than 90% of those card-carrying registered Mormons who are de jure Mormon on paper. Even my sister, who went through the temple wedding, the temple where all the secret stuff goes on, but she wasn't aware of the technicalities about divorce and getting remarried until it applied to her. There's a lot of people that went through the motions and their testimony isn't any less sincere than everyone else. But when you see someone like this and know that God, he has been touched by an angel, it makes everyone else's testimony seem a little less sincere. And you know that this guy ain't going to second guess or start rethinking or get cold feet or reconsider or have to think about it in the moment. He's got a solid foundation of experience that his testimony is based upon. So everyone else that comes up here and bears their testimony and says, I know this church is real, seems shallow and superficial compared to this guy who's bearing his testimony the last couple of years. And so, even people that are card-carrying members of the Mormon Church are probably leaning on my testimony, which reignites their faith that God is real, works in mysterious ways, and with people that you would have never expected to be bearing such a testimony as the one that I do. Combine that with the physical evidence of my testimony, the plasma fires, the sun tunnel, airborne aircraft carrier, black dot craft floating over Pleasant Grove, the portal in the cathedral, electronics in the sun and moon, and you can even see in the moon with your own eyes. If you watch it go over right now, it sets half moon at about noon. So that means you got to get up and see it rise at midnight, and it'll be half moon with a vertical light line. By noon, it sets on the western horizon, half moon with a horizontal light line. Again, it rises as a half moon. Around midnight, you can watch it rise on the eastern horizon like this. By the time it sets on the western horizon,